Could Braun Strowman and Zill Fatu be the key to saving Roman Reigns and the OG Bloodline? Team Roman Reigns is in trouble. With Survivor Series, WarGames approaching fast, they're still missing a crucial fifth member. Meanwhile, Solo Sikoa and his version of the Bloodline are already locked and loaded, thanks to the addition of Bronson Reed, who demolished the OG Bloodline on SmackDown this week. Naturally, a lot of fans expected Seth Rollins to step in as the fifth man. But what if the answer lies elsewhere? What if Team Roman gets help from another former Universal Champion? Enter Braun Strowman. While Reed and Rollins have had their share of problems, Reed may have met his match back in September when he clashed with the monster among men himself. That match, billed as a last monster standing bout on Raw, ended with Strowman victorious, but not without a cost. He suffered a torn groin and has been off TV ever since. Until now. Strowman returned to in-ring action last night, teaming up with Dragon Lee and Rey Mysterio in a six-man tag dark match against the Judgment Day. And that changes everything. If Rollins turns down the spot, Strowman suddenly becomes a top-tier option for Team Roman. Why? Because he's got unfinished business with Bronson Reed, and he's never been one to turn down a fight. Especially when it means proving he's still the only monster that matters in WWE. At this point, it's all speculation. But one thing's clear, Roman Reigns and his team are running out of time. If they want a shot at surviving WarGames, they'd better lock in that fifth member soon. Cody Rhodes has become WWE's top babyface, a modern-day John Cena. He leads from the front, represents the brand, and connects with fans. But what if that's exactly why a heel turn would hit so hard? There are already enough good guys on the roster to carry the banner. Cody, on the other hand, could explore a darker, more complex version of himself. Slowly building an edge, week by week, until he finally snaps and targets Roman Reigns. It would be the perfect setup for their third straight WrestleMania main event, this time with a personal twist that takes their feud to another level. A WrestleMania triple threat, Cody vs. Roman vs. The Rock? It sounds wild, but it could happen. A triple threat at WrestleMania 41 featuring Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, and The Rock would instantly become one of the most stacked main events in WWE history. Remember, when The Rock returned at Bad Blood, he didn't say who he was coming for. That mystery leaves the door wide open. If he targets Cody and the undisputed WWE Championship, and Roman wins the 2025 Royal Rumble, the pieces fall into place for an epic showdown. Cody would be stepping into the ring with two of the biggest icons of all time. And if he walks out on top? He doesn't just finish the story, he becomes a legend in the process. Who should be the fifth member of Team Roman? Is Cody destined to turn heel? And will The Rock crash WrestleMania 41? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe. The bloodline is bleeding. Not metaphorically. Literally. Last Friday on SmackDown, Solo Sikoa, once the loyal enforcer of Roman Reigns, stood tall in the ring, arms crossed, unmoved as Bronson Reed delivered the final crushing splash on Jimmy Uso. The scene was carnage. Jay was nowhere to be found. Paul Heyman looked like he'd seen a ghost. And Roman Reigns? Absent. Again. This isn't the bloodline we knew. This is war. And for the first time in nearly 3 years, it's unclear who will survive. Once upon a time, Roman Reigns ran WWE like a mob boss. The tribal chief, as he crowned himself, didn't just dominate title matches. He dictated the very culture of the locker room. You weren't just fighting for belts, you were fighting for acknowledgement. And if you didn't fall in line, you got put down. But that empire is now in shambles. The Usos turned. Solo split. And the so-called new bloodline isn't a copy, it's a hostile takeover. Built on violence. Fueled by betrayal. The WWE Universe has been asking, where is Roman? And more importantly, can he fix this? This isn't just about faction warfare. This is about legacy. Romans. The Usos. The entire Anoa'i family tree that shaped wrestling history. When Solo Sikoa brought in Bronson Reed, it wasn't just a tactical move, it was a statement. The OG Bloodline isn't feared anymore. They're prey. And unless something changes fast, the wolves are closing in. That's where the wild rumor mill comes into play. In the last week alone, social media has exploded with speculation. Who's stepping up? Seth Rollins? Cody Rhodes? Maybe even The Rock? But there's one name that started to trend quietly, like a tremor before an earthquake. Braun Strowman. And another name, whispered among hardcore fans and family insiders, Zill Fatu. The WWE calendar isn't forgiving. Survivor Series, WarGames is weeks away. If the OG Bloodline wants to even the score, they need numbers. Now. Not in a month. Not after another beatdown. They need their fifth man. But here's the twist, this isn't just about filling a slot. Whoever joins Team Roman has to be a game changer. A monster. A statement of intent. Because on the other side? Solo Sikoa, Bronson Reed, and 3 rising killers who smell blood. Every day that passes without an answer, the story slips further out of Roman's control. And while Seth Rollins would bring prestige, and Cody Rhodes would bring star power, neither of them solve the fundamental problem: the bloodline is outmuscled. Outgunned. Overrun. Let's rewind. In September, a brutal match headlined Raw. It was billed as a last monster standing match. No title on the line. No stipulation for contendership. Just 2 heavyweight titans smashing each other into the mat. Braun Strowman vs. Bronson Reed. Strowman won. But barely. He limped away from the arena and straight into surgery. A torn groin and several months of rehab took him out of the spotlight and out of fans' minds. Until now. This past weekend, in an untelevised dark match after SmackDown, Braun returned. Tagging with Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee, he obliterated the Judgment Day with a force that felt personal. No promo. No backstage vignette. Just brute violence. That's not a coincidence. That's a warning shot. Let's call it what it is, Braun isn't finesse. He's not here to work 5-star matches or cut Shakespearean promos. He's a destroyer. A throwback to the days when wrestling was about big men doing big damage. And that's exactly what Roman needs. Solo's team is stacked with heavy hitters. Bronson Reed is nearly 330 pounds and moves like a linebacker. You don't counter that with mind games, you counter it with monsters. Braun may be the only man on the WWE roster who knows how to beat Bronson because he's done it before. Think about it, he's a former Universal Champion. He has history with Roman, both as an enemy and uneasy ally. He's cleared to return, and looking for war. And here's the kicker. He has nothing to lose. That makes him dangerous. That makes him perfect. But what if Braun isn't coming alone? What if he brings a legacy with him? Zill Fatu is the son of Umaga. The next in line from the Anoa'i dynasty. Though untested in WWE, he's been lighting up the independent scene. His ring style? Heavy strikes. Samoa drop finishers. A savage intensity that feels like it was bred, not taught. Rumors have been circulating that Zilla's WWE debut is imminent. And if he arrives at Roman's side, it wouldn't just balance the numbers, it would strike psychological fear into Solo Sikoa's camp. Remember, Solo modeled himself after Umaga. How do you stand your ground when the ghost of your idol walks into the room? Let's be clear. WarGames isn't just another PLE. It's the battlefield. No ropes. No rules. 2 rings. 1 cage. It's built to settle scores and ruin bodies. Roman's team can't afford a weak link. Every man has to be willing to go to war. Every man has to want to leave a body behind. Seth Rollins may have too much to lose. Cody may be too focused on WrestleMania. The Rock may never show up. But Braun and Zilla? They've got nothing to protect. They've got something to prove. So here we are. Survivor Series is around the corner. Solo's team is locked in. Roman's is still scrambling. The Bloodline, once the most dominant faction in modern WWE history, is now a question mark. And Roman Reigns, once the unbeatable final boss, is now on the defensive. But the tides could shift. All it takes is one return. One debut. One alliance. And suddenly, the OG Bloodline isn't just surviving. They're hunting. So the question isn't just who's the fifth man? The question is, who's coming for revenge? They were supposed to be untouchable. For over 1,000 days, Roman Reigns and his bloodline didn't just hold championships, they held the entire WWE roster in check. Every storyline, every title chase, every crowd reaction funneled through their orbit. They were the final word. The top of the food chain. But every empire falls. And this one is collapsing fast. It didn't happen overnight. The decay started slowly, subtle betrayals, quiet tensions, fractures masked as family disagreements. Then it accelerated. Now it's undeniable. The bloodline isn't in control anymore. They're scrambling. They're vulnerable. And if something doesn't change soon, they won't survive what's coming. Let's rewind the tape. How did the most dominant faction in modern wrestling history end up in pieces? Roman Reigns began his tribal reign in 2020. Fresh off a return at SummerSlam, he took the Universal title in a triple threat match at Payback and never looked back. His new persona wasn't just a character shift, it was a psychological transformation. Roman wasn't wrestling to entertain. He was enforcing tribal law. And he didn't do it alone. Paul Heyman, master strategist and mouthpiece of legends, realigned himself with Roman. That alliance set the tone. This Roman wasn't here to earn respect. He would demand it. Then came Jey Uso. At first, Jey resisted. He didn't buy into the tribal chief narrative. But Roman broke him. Not just physically, emotionally. After 2 brutal matches and a series of psychological games, Jey fell in line. Jimmy followed shortly after. Solo Sikoa debuted later, handpicked from NXT and thrust into Roman's army. With each addition, the bloodline grew stronger, more menacing, more complete. They didn't just win, they humiliated opponents. The Usos collected tag team titles. Solo destroyed rookies and veterans alike. Paul Heyman spun every segment into gold. And Roman, perched at the top with 2 championship belts and a cold stare, seemed invincible. But dominance breeds resentment. And paranoia. The seeds of betrayal were always there, hiding beneath the surface. Jey Uso was the first to snap. He walked out of the bloodline, refusing to play the puppet anymore. His feud with Roman lit up main events and left emotional wreckage in its wake. Jimmy soon followed, though his allegiance wavered. For months, he was hot and cold, saving Roman one week, super kicking him the next. Solo Sikoa, meanwhile, stayed quiet. Too quiet. The enforcer role masked his ambition. He absorbed everything. He watched how Roman moved. How he manipulated. How he controlled. And he took notes. The breaking point came after WrestleMania 40. Roman retained the undisputed championship, but the foundation was already cracked. Jey was gone. Jimmy was fractured. Solo, finally ready to break free, began moving behind the scenes. The first true act of betrayal didn't happen in a title match. It happened backstage, in whispers. Solo began forming alliances, quiet ones. First with Jacob Fatu behind the scenes. Then, shockingly, with Bronson Reed, a wrecking ball from Raw who had no previous ties to the Anoa'i family but plenty of violence in his hands. That's when things turned. Bronson Reed arrived on SmackDown unannounced and laid waste to the OG Bloodline. His first target, Jimmy Uso. Then he went after Heyman. The message was clear. This wasn't about championship gold. This was about power. And Solo Sikoa was sending a warning. Roman Reigns was absent that night. And that wasn't an accident. Roman's sporadic appearances, once a flex of dominance, now felt like abandonment. The bloodline wasn't being led. It was being hunted. For fans watching at home, the optics were devastating. The group that once terrorized the WWE roster was now scattered, each member isolated and bleeding. Jimmy was stretchered out. Heyman disappeared. Jay was focused on his own path. Solo stood center ring with his new army, unfazed, untouchable. WWE programming subtly shifted the narrative. Roman was no longer being referred to as the leader of the bloodline. That title? It was now being whispered in the same breath as Solo Sikoa. The quiet kid brother was now the frontman. And here's the brutal truth, the OG bloodline didn't just fall because of betrayal. They fell because of evolution. While they played the same games they had for 3 years, Solo changed the rules. He moved quicker, dirtier, and with zero hesitation. Roman's strategy of psychological control, slowing the game down, choking opponents with doubt, was outdated. Solo brought in power. Bronson Reed didn't need a mic. He didn't need a feud. He needed a target. And he's been delivering weekly, putting down bloodline loyalists one by one. As of now, Team Solo includes Solo Sikoa, Silent Killer, redefining legacy on his terms. Bronson Reed, the new monster. No alliances, just impact. 2 additional members yet to be revealed, but rumors point to rising NXT talent within OI bloodlines. The OG bloodline, in contrast, has Roman Reigns, missing. No promos. No confirmations. No tweets. Jimmy Uso, injured. Paul Heyman, vanished. An uncertain alliance with Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso that could crack at any moment. And here lies the critical difference, Team Solo is hungry. Motivated. They want to take, destroy, and own. The OG bloodline is fighting to survive. That shift in energy is lethal. This fall from grace wasn't inevitable, but it was predictable. Roman's insistence on control alienated the very people he needed most. His leadership was built on fear, not loyalty. So when the moment came, no one hesitated to jump ship. Even worse, fans began to lose faith. Not in Roman's talent, but in his relevance. WWE moves fast. Attention spans are shorter. When you're not there, people move on. And right now, Solo's version of the bloodline feels like the future. But history has a funny way of circling back. Roman Reigns is many things. Manipulative, cold, strategic, but he's not stupid. He knows what this looks like. He knows Survivor Series is coming. And if he has even a shred of pride left, he won't let this legacy die without a fight. The problem? Time. He's out of it. With each passing show, Team Solo grows stronger, more unified. The OG bloodline needs to respond, and fast. But Roman can't do it alone. The bloodline's fall might have started with betrayal. But it could end with redemption. If, and only if, the right reinforcements arrive. Braun Strowman isn't just a name. He's a wrecking ball. And his feud with Bronson Reed is unfinished. Add Zill Fatu, a fresh face with legacy firepower, and suddenly Roman's odds don't look so hopeless. But before we talk about redemption, we have to understand the depth of the collapse. The bloodline didn't just fall apart, they were dismantled. Piece by piece. The monster they created turned on them. Their legacy was weaponized against them. Their dominance became their downfall. What comes next could save them. Or bury them. That's the reality of war in WWE. It moves fast. It hits hard. And it doesn't care who you were, only who's still standing when the cage door locks. Roman Reigns used to be the one holding that door shut. Now he's the one outside it, trying to find a way back in. In wrestling, returns are a dime a dozen. Surprise pops. Theme music hitting mid-match. A comeback promo that trends on social media for a day or two. But there's a difference between a comeback and a reckoning. And what Braun Strowman just walked into. That's a reckoning waiting to happen. Braun Strowman is not your typical return. He doesn't sneak back quietly. He doesn't ease into the mid-card and earn his spot. He stomps down the ramp like a runaway freight train, and when the smoke clears, someone isn't getting back up. And now, after nearly 9 months out of action, Strowman is back. Just in time. Because Roman Reigns doesn't need a promo partner, he needs a weapon. A monster. A statement. Braun Strowman might be exactly that. But let's rewind. Strowman's last major match before his injury wasn't a title bout. It wasn't even a marquee feud. It was something more primal. A challenge. A question posed and answered with violence: who is the biggest, baddest monster in WWE? The opponent? Bronson Reed. They met on a random Monday Night Raw in a match that wasn't hyped as a classic, but quickly became one of the most brutal heavyweight fights of the year. Titled Last Monster Standing, it was less about storytelling and more about survival. Tables broken. Barricades shattered. Flesh bruised. And when the dust finally settled, Braun stood tall, but barely. He tore his groin midway through the match, finishing it on adrenaline and fury alone. The victory was Pyrrhic. He vanished the next week, and fans assumed the monster among men had reached the end of his run. But monsters don't fade. They hibernate. In the meantime, Bronson Reed kept climbing. He found his way to solo Sikoa. And together, they formed a new force, part Bloodline, part Chaos Engine. Reed became the enforcer. A role Braun once defined. And that's where the problem lies. Braun Strowman didn't just beat Bronson Reed. He paid for it with months of agony. Rehab. Silence. Watching from the sidelines while Reed took his spot and molded it into something new. Now, with Reed crushing the OG Bloodline and Solo crowning him a core member of the new dynasty, Strowman sees the writing on the wall. He wasn't replaced. He was invited back. And he's answering the call. His first match back wasn't televised. A 6-man tag at a house show. Braun teamed up with Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee to take on the Judgment Day. The match itself was short, but the result was unmistakable. Strowman was sharp, mobile, and angry. Not just performing. Hunting. As if the ring time wasn't about getting reps, it was about sending a message. Fans in attendance noted something even more important than his performance: his attitude. He didn't smile. He didn't play to the crowd. He didn't high-five fans. He walked straight to the ring, destroyed bodies, and left. This wasn't the Strowman who used to flip trucks and shout catchphrases. This was something colder. Smarter. More focused. And here's the twist: Strowman may not even be returning for titles. He might be back for revenge. Reed's rise. Solo's disrespect. Roman's silence. It all adds up. Which brings us to the strategic question. Why is Braun Strowman the right man for Roman Reigns' team? Let's break it down. First, history. Braun and Roman have clashed multiple times over the years. Their feud from 2017 to 2020 produced some of the most memorable segments of the pandemic era. Ambulance flips. Last man standing chaos. Steel cage implosions. These two men know each other's rhythms. And more importantly, they know how to coexist when the stakes are high. Second, physicality. Survivor Series, WarGames isn't one with super kicks and suicide dives. It's one with mass. With bodies stacked in corners. With cages weaponized. Braun is built for that. He's 6 feet 8 inches, 385 pounds, and can run the ropes like a cruiserweight. You can't coach that. You can't match that. Third, psychology. Reed isn't just a problem for Roman's team. He's a psychological anchor. The man is undefeated in major tag bouts since aligning with Solo. He's been booked like an immovable object. But Strowman? He already moved him. He broke the myth. That alone makes him valuable. It changes the story. Imagine the moment. Team Roman is down 3-1. Reed is steamrolling through Jimmy Uso. Solo is screaming at the crowd. And then, the lights drop. That train horn blares. Strowman storms down the ramp and barrels through Reed with a shoulder block that sends 330 pounds flying across the ring. The crowd erupts. The tide turns. That's not a segment. That's a reset button. But there's more to consider than just in-ring mechanics. Braun's return also sends a message backstage. When a talent like Strowman is brought into a major angle, it tells the locker room something important. WWE is investing in him again. They believe there's still gas in the tank. And in a moment where the roster is saturated with high flyers and talkers, Braun brings something unique, destructive simplicity. He doesn't need mic time. He needs targets. Of course, the return isn't risk-free. Braun's past WWE runs have been hit or miss. For every dominant showing against Roman or Lesnar, there's been questionable booking, abrupt character changes, or underwhelming feuds. The key this time is purpose. He needs to be tied directly to the Bloodline civil war. No side quests. No comedy angles. Just pain. And there's one more thing, something that isn't being talked about enough. Strowman may not be returning alone. Recent whispers suggest he's been seen backstage with key figures in the Anoa'i family. Notably, Rikishi. And possibly Zill Fatu. If true, this changes the dynamic entirely. Braun could be the bridge, not just between eras, but between powerhouses. Imagine Braun as the monster bodyguard, Zilla as the young assassin, and Roman as the general. It's not just a team. It's a warning. So what happens next? In the coming weeks, WWE will be forced to show their hand. If Braun is joining Team Roman, it can't be subtle. He needs to be reintroduced with authority. A surprise appearance at the end of SmackDown. A lights-out moment. A stare-down with Reed that reminds fans exactly who the original monster is. Or, if they want to wait until WarGames itself, the payoff has to be even bigger. Think Mick Foley at No Way Out 2000. Think Cena returning at the 2008 Rumble. It can't be soft. Because here's the brutal reality, Roman's team isn't just in need of members. They're in need of hope. Right now, Solo's version of the Bloodline has all the momentum. They have muscle. Unity. Youth. Roman squad? They've got history, and scars. That's not enough. Braun Strowman gives them the edge they're missing. He brings unpredictability, rage, and a chip on his shoulder the size of the WarGames cage. He isn't just fighting for Roman. He's fighting for his place in a world that moved on without him. And that's a dangerous thing. So is Braun Strowman the fifth man? Maybe. But the better question is, what happens if he isn't? Because if Roman passes on Braun, and the OG Bloodline goes into that cage without a true monster, the match won't last long. Solo won't hesitate. Reed won't slow down. And Roman's legacy will be swallowed whole. There's only one way to stop that. You don't outtalk a monster. You fight it with a bigger one. In the shadow of giants, it's easy to be overlooked. And yet, sometimes the most dangerous player in the game isn't the one with the legacy, it's the one with something to prove. Enter Zill Fatu. He isn't a household name, yet. But if the rumors are true, that's about to change. Because if Roman Reigns truly wants to strike fear into the heart of Solo Sikoa and reclaim dominance for the OG bloodline, he won't just need muscle. He'll need family. Not the kind bound by titles, but the kind that shares blood and bad intentions. And that's what makes Zill Fatu such a dangerous X-factor. Let's start with the basics. Zill Fatu is the son of Edward Umaga Fatu, one of the most feared and respected Samoan wrestlers in WWE history. Umaga wasn't just powerful, he was brutal. A force of nature with no brakes and no conscience. He didn't cut promos. He didn't pander. He dominated. And his legacy still casts a long shadow in the Samoan wrestling lineage. Zilla has taken that torch. Born in Houston, Texas, Zilla grew up outside the mainstream wrestling spotlight. His path wasn't easy. He had a troubled youth, including a stint in prison. But it was behind bars that the transformation began. According to interviews, Zilla started training both physically and mentally during his sentence, dedicating himself to getting out, getting clean, and building a future in the ring. That focus led him to the reality of wrestling school, Booker T's renowned promotion, where he began developing his style. From the moment he stepped into the ring, something was obvious: he wasn't trying to be another indie darling. He was fighting like a man chasing redemption. He wasn't clean or flashy. His offense was raw. Strikes that echoed through the venue. Samoan drops delivered with teeth-gritting force. A finisher that's an homage to his father's iconic Samoan spike. But modified, sharper, more personal. He wasn't trying to honor Umaga. He was trying to finish what Umaga started. And fans took notice. Videos from reality of wrestling events started making the rounds on Twitter and Reddit. Clips of Zilla dismantling opponents without a single wasted movement. His ring presence stood out, not just because of his size or legacy, but because of how quietly dangerous he was. He didn't talk much. He didn't pose. He just punished. Now let's talk about the bigger picture. Zilla has yet to debut in WWE, but he's made no secret about his aspirations. He wants in. And not just anywhere, he wants to be part of the bloodline story. He said it. Fans have begged for it. The timing couldn't be more perfect. Because right now, Solo Sikoa is channeling Umaga. The aggression. The facial expressions. The unhinged violence. But that homage comes with a price. It means if Zilla steps through that curtain, he becomes Solo's worst nightmare. A living reminder that what Solo mimics, Zilla embodies. Imagine that moment. Solo is in the ring with Bronson Reed and two other enforcers. Roman is cornered. The OG bloodline is barely holding the line. The crowd is waiting for a miracle. And then the lights drop. A heartbeat pulses through the speakers. A distorted voice growls a name. Zill Fatu. He walks out, not smiling. Not rushing. Just focused. Intense. Dead-eyed like his father. And the look on Solo's face says everything. Not fear. But hesitation. Recognition. For the first time in weeks, the new bloodline looks unsure. That's not fantasy booking. That's strategy. Because Zilla doesn't just add a fresh face, he flips the psychology of the entire story. Up until now, Solo has controlled the emotional tension. He's been the aggressor, the judge, jury, and executioner. But if Zilla shows up, he puts Solo on the defensive. He reclaims the ancestral pride that Solo twisted into something darker. He makes the war personal. And WWE loves personal. Let's also be real, Zilla is untested on the main stage. He's green. He hasn't wrestled in front of 10,000 people. He hasn't been thrown into the deep end of live TV. But that's exactly what makes his arrival so compelling. There's unpredictability. No one knows what he'll say. No one knows if he can hold his own. That tension is electric. It gives the feud teeth. And from a business standpoint, WWE knows this too. The Bloodline storyline is about family, legacy, identity. Adding another True Blood family member is the next evolution. Zilla isn't some hired gun. He's a Fatu. That name means something. It means violence. It means tradition. It means you belong. There's also long-term potential here. Let's say Zilla debuts at Survivor Series. He helps Roman. He becomes part of the OG Bloodline. That opens the door for future matchups: Zilla vs. Solo, Zilla vs. Bronson Reed, even Zilla vs. Jay or Jimmy if things fracture again. It's not just about a one-night pop. It's about adding another pillar to the dynasty. And the fanbase? They're ready. Chants have already started at live events. We want Zilla. Social media posts speculating about his debut spike every time the Bloodline segment ends with a beatdown. There's a hunger for something new, but rooted in something real. There's also a larger narrative in play. Zilla's story is one of redemption. He went to prison. He found purpose. He chose discipline. That's a story WWE loves to tell. They can build that arc across months. From outsider to warrior. From shadow to spotlight. Pairing him with Roman gives him instant credibility. But more than that, it gives Roman authenticity again. Right now, Roman is drifting. He's been absent too long. His aura is fading. By aligning with Zilla, he reasserts the family roots of the Bloodline. He reminds fans that this isn't just a faction, it's a lineage. That blood means everything. That the future is still tied to the past. In the current landscape, the OG Bloodline is desperate. Roman needs bodies, yes. But more importantly, he needs believers. People who fight not just because they were asked, but because they believe in what the name Reigns represents. Zill Fatu is that. He's not trying to be the next Roman. He's trying to be the first Zilla. And that's the most dangerous kind of ally. WWE factions aren't built on friendship. They're built on leverage. Power. Shared objectives. When Roman Reigns formed the Bloodline, it wasn't a gesture of family unity. It was war strategy. He took Jey Uso, who he broke in the ring, and bent him into a weapon. Jimmy followed, reluctantly. Solo came next, a blank slate with fire in his eyes. Paul Heyman, the eternal chess master, stood in the background, pulling threads. It worked because everyone knew their role. Roman was the general. Jey was the right hand. Jimmy the loyal soldier. Solo the enforcer. And Heyman the mouthpiece. For nearly 3 years, it ran like a machine. But machines break. Especially when loyalty is based on fear. Now, with the Bloodline fractured and Team Roman bleeding bodies, the strategy needs to change. It's no longer about enforcing dominance, it's about surviving mutiny. And that requires a new kind of alliance. Let's break down the two major reinforcements currently being discussed: Braun Strowman and Zill Fatu. Neither are obvious picks. But both represent exactly what Roman needs: muscle, purpose, and unpredictability. Start with Braun. In the past, Roman and Braun were sworn enemies. Their feud was violent, personal, and, at times, bitter. Braun flipped ambulances. Roman speared him through LED boards. They weren't just rivals, they were a force of nature colliding. And yet, in this moment, with the walls closing in, Braun might be the most logical ally Roman could make. Why? Because of shared history. Roman doesn't trust easily. That's part of his downfall. He assumes betrayal is inevitable, so he keeps people at arm's length. But he knows Braun. He knows what he's capable of in a fight. He's felt it. And more importantly, he knows that Braun isn't a political player. He doesn't care about titles or legacy. He wants one thing: carnage. That makes him reliable. Especially now, When Solo's team is filled with wreckers like Bronson Reed and Jacob Fatu, Roman needs someone who can match them physically. He can't outtalk them. He has to outfight them. Braun gives him that muscle. But more than that, Braun brings an edge. A lot of people forget, Braun was never part of a real faction. He bounced around, worked solo, dominated squash matches, but never had a lasting alliance. Aligning him with Roman gives both men something they've never had, true common cause. Not respect. Not family. Just war. And then there's Zilla. His value isn't physical, at least, not yet. Zilla is still untested at the highest level. But he offers something even more valuable, narrative power. He brings bloodline legitimacy. The son of Umaga. The nephew of Rikishi. The cousin of Roman, the Usos, and Solo. His existence alone changes the equation. Because Roman doesn't just need fighters. He needs symbols. People who prove that the bloodline is still a real dynasty, not a fractured gimmick. Zilla, if brought in properly, could reset the spiritual tone of the faction. He doesn't talk much. He doesn't need to. His presence speaks for itself. When you see him, you see legacy, real, violent, unfinished legacy. If Roman can mold him, protect him, and position him as the future, he gains two things, a loyal soldier now, and a long-term successor later. That's critical. Because no matter how this WarGames match ends, Roman knows his reign is on borrowed time. The crowd is shifting. The roster is evolving. He's not the fresh face anymore. Aligning with Zilla gives him relevance again. It makes him the mentor, not just the tyrant. Now, how do these pieces fit together? Braun as the hammer. Zilla as the bloodline. Roman as the strategist. But it doesn't work unless Roman changes. That's the key to this whole arc. Roman can't win this war using the same tactics that led to his empire collapsing. He can't manipulate and isolate. He has to lead. For real this time. Look at the landscape. Cody Rhodes is the face of WWE's future. Seth Rollins is the workhorse champion. Solo is the rising threat. Roman is stuck between eras. This WarGames match isn't just about factional bragging rights. It's about proving Roman Reigns still belongs at the top of the food chain. If he fails to adapt, he becomes history. So what does adapting look like? It looks like trusting Braun to be the one who makes the first move, the one who takes out Bronson Reed without needing to be micromanaged. It means allowing Zilla to find his voice, not forcing it. It also means confronting Solo head-on. That's the match everyone is waiting for. Roman versus Solo. The Fallen King versus the Rebel Prince. But you don't get to that match unless Roman survives Survivor Series. And to do that, he needs to build alliances that aren't just based on dominance, they're based on strategy. Braun, for all his power, is a man who respects loyalty. If Roman gives him a reason, he'll stay the course. But if Roman plays games, Braun will walk. Or worse, turn. Zilla is different. He wants to learn. He wants to belong. But he also wants to earn it. If Roman tries to use him like he did the Usos, the cycle will repeat. Another betrayal. Another fracture. That can't happen again. So how do you build the alliance? Step 1, respect. Roman has to meet both men where they are. No tribal ceremonies. No manipulative speeches. Just honesty. Lay out the stakes. I need you. Not because I'm desperate. But because I'm willing to fight different this time. Step 2, execution. The alignment has to be shown, not told. Braun returning to SmackDown, saving Roman from a Reed beatdown. Zilla debuting not in a backstage segment, but in the ring, facing Solo, even briefly. It needs to feel earned. Step 3, unity. The Bloodline's biggest flaw has always been internal distrust. For this to work, Braun and Zilla need to work as a unit. No power struggles. No side feuds. At least not yet. The mission is WarGames. After that, splinters can happen. But not before. The payoff of this alliance goes beyond one match. If Roman builds the right squad, he creates a new era. Not a repeat of the old bloodline, but a new version. More focused. More dangerous. More strategic. Because here's the truth, Solo Sikoa and Bronson Reed aren't just threats because they're strong. They're threats because they're united. Focused. They believe in the mission. Roman can't beat that with nostalgia. He has to beat it with evolution. And maybe, just maybe, Braun Strowman and Zill Fatu are the keys to that evolution. The countdown has begun. Survivor Series, WarGames isn't just another premium live event on WWE's calendar. It's a battleground. A proving ground. And for the bloodline, both the original and the new, it's the arena where history is either reclaimed or rewritten. The cage is symbolic. It's confinement, yes, but also clarity. Once those doors lock and the bell rings, everything is stripped down. No outside interference. No backstage politics. Just 5-on-5 brutality in 2 rings surrounded by steel. It's not about moments, it's about survival. And this year, no team has more to lose than Team Roman. Let's take a look at the battlefield. Team Solo Sikoa is already solidified, aggressive, focused, and clearly defined. Solo, who's turned the concept of the bloodline into something more vicious and volatile, leads the charge. His team, so far, consists of himself, Bronson Reed, Jacob Fatu, recently confirmed via insider leaks, and 2 yet-to-be-named powerhouses from NXT rumored to have ties to the Anoa'i lineage. This is not a random faction. This is an intentional army. Every member is dangerous. Bronson Reed brings pure size and destruction. Jacob Fatu is chaos in motion, unpredictable, explosive, and built like a walking wrecking ball. The 2 NXT stars being teased? They're rumored to be trained in the hybrid style, ground and pound with aerial precision. In other words, Solo's team isn't just built to win. It's built to hurt people. On the other side, we have a shell of what used to be the most dominant faction in wrestling, the OG Bloodline. At the moment, the team looks something like this: Roman Reigns, undisputed Universal Champion. Jimmy Uso, injured, questionable for WarGames. Jey Uso, currently aligned with Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes, potential wildcard or defector. And that's the issue. While Solo's faction walks into WarGames with momentum, cohesion, and brutality, Roman's side is uncertain. They're disjointed. Mentally frayed. Physically vulnerable. So what does Team Roman need to survive? They need purpose. Identity. A new reason to fight. Because nostalgia isn't going to cut it anymore. Fans aren't chanting Tribal Chief the way they used to. The mystique is fading. Roman needs to go back to basics. Not the suit-wearing manipulator of 2022, but the battle-hardened warrior who fought for every inch of dominance in 2020. That Roman? He can lead men into a cage and come out with his legacy intact. Let's break down what Team Roman needs to bring to the table to have even a shot at surviving the most violent match of the year. First, power. This is non-negotiable. Solo's team is all power. Braun Strowman becomes essential here. He's not just a guy who throws punches, he's someone who can take down Bronson Reed. That alone gives Team Roman a fighting chance. Without Braun, there is no physical equalizer. Second, chemistry. Team Solo isn't 5 superstars thrown together. It's a cohesive, violent unit. Roman's side can't just feature big names, it has to be united in purpose. That's why the inclusion of Zill Fatu would matter so much. He wouldn't just be new blood, he'd be bloodline. He could be the glue between the veterans and the future. Third, heart. This is where someone like Jey Uso becomes vital. While his status with Roman is complicated, fractured, bitter, unresolved, his passion is unquestioned. Jay was the emotional anchor of the original Bloodline. He gave the story its soul. His return to Roman's side, even if temporary, would mean something. It would signal that there's still something worth fighting for. Even in ashes, the fire isn't out. And then there's Cody Rhodes, WWE's golden boy. The American Nightmare. The man who said he came to finish the story. But is that story still about winning the undisputed championship? Or is it about finishing the Bloodline? Cody aligning with Roman, even temporarily, would be fascinating. It would be less about friendship and more about necessity. Cody has a score to settle with Solo. Remember, Solo cost him his WrestleMania moment. If he joins Team Roman, it's not out of respect, it's a move of strategy. Help Roman now, beat him later. That's a compelling arc. Now let's talk tactics. WarGames matches aren't won in the opening moments. They're slow burns. Strategic. Violent. Pacing is everything. Here's how Team Roman could realistically structure the match. Phase 1, Survival. Start with someone like Jay or Cody, someone fast, experienced, and willing to take damage. Let them weather the early storm while the rest of the team builds anticipation. Phase 2, Shift the momentum. Enter Braun. His arrival mid-match would change the tone immediately. Once he clears house, the match turns into a true war. Phase 3, Psychological warfare. Enter Zilla. Make his debut count. Let him face off with Solo. A few stiff strikes. A stare down that tells a deeper story. That moment alone would break the internet. Phase 4, The Anchor. Roman enters last. Not as the savior, but as the closer. No promos. No stalling. Just violence. Now, potential outcomes. If Team Roman wins, it resets the balance. Roman becomes credible again. The OG Bloodline has a reason to rebuild. Braun gets his revenge. Zilla gets his moment. And Solo is forced to regroup. It sets up Roman vs. Solo for Royal Rumble, while leaving Cody's story intact for WrestleMania. If Team Roman loses, Roman's reign spirals. The Bloodline is officially dead. Solo ascends. Zilla is set up as the future. And the path is clear for Cody to step up as the hero, not just to beat Roman, but to beat everything he stood for. Either way, the stakes are massive. This isn't just about who pins who. It's about what survives once the cage opens. Because when WarGames ends, one team walks out. And one legacy is buried. Seth Rollins should be the obvious choice. He's a top guy. A Grand Slam champion. A former Shield brother. One of the few superstars who can stand eye to eye with Roman Reigns and not flinch. In the past, he's carried Raw on his back, reinvented himself multiple times, and built a reputation as one of the most versatile and reliable talents in the company. So why is he hesitating? Why is one of WWE's most decorated stars not already locked in as the fifth member of Team Roman for WarGames? Because this isn't just a match. This is politics, legacy, and risk all rolled into one. Let's start with the surface-level facts. Seth Rollins is currently the reigning World Heavyweight Champion. He's already committed to defending that title, possibly at the same event, or very close to it. Taking part in a WarGames match, physically one of the most brutal formats WWE has, puts his title reign at risk. Even a minor injury could cost him months. A major one could cost him his momentum entirely. But there's more to it than logistics. Seth Rollins has been burned before. His history with Roman Reigns is long and complicated. They debuted together as The Shield in 2012, alongside Dean Ambrose. As a unit, they were dominant. Unified. Efficient. But that unity didn't last. In 2014, it was Seth who drove the steel chair into Roman's back and shattered the Shield. That betrayal still haunts every interaction between them. Since then, they've fought, aligned, split again, and fought some more. Their chemistry is electric, but their trust is dead. Rollins doesn't forget. And he doesn't forgive easily. When Roman took on the tribal chief persona, Seth didn't fall in line. He didn't acknowledge Roman like others did. He didn't fear him. In fact, in their 2022 title match at the Royal Rumble, it was Rollins who walked in with the mind games. The Shield gear. The mocking. The entrance music. He played Roman like a fiddle, right up until Roman snapped and got himself disqualified. Even in victory, Roman couldn't beat Seth. That's not lost on anyone. Least of all Rollins. Now, imagine Roman calls him and asks for help. That's a tough sell. Because Seth doesn't owe Roman anything. And if anything, helping Roman right now would elevate Roman's profile at a time when Seth is trying to carve out his own legacy, away from the tribal chief's shadow. There's also a deeper issue. Seth is building something new. He's not just the world heavyweight champion. He's the face of Raw. The guy who shows up week in, week out, to wrestle, defend, and connect with fans. His character, part visionary, part chaotic artist, is hitting its peak. Aligning with Roman right now feels regressive. It feels like going backward. Especially when he knows that he could be the next big babyface opponent for Roman down the road. So why risk it? Why step into WarGames, a match built on unity and trust, when he doesn't even like half the guys on the team? Because there is a case to be made. But it's complicated. Rollins has unfinished business with Solo Sikoa. There's tension there. And even more so with Bronson Reed, who's been circling the upper mid-card and teasing a confrontation with Seth for months. WarGames could be an opportunity to eliminate those threats in one fell swoop. Then there's Cody Rhodes. Seth and Cody aren't friends, but they are rivals with mutual respect. They've gone to war 3 times, including a legendary Hell in a Cell match with Cody wrestling with a torn pec. If Cody vouches for Roman's team and needs a 5th, that might be enough to sway Seth into the fight, not for Roman, but for Cody. Still, even that's a stretch. Rollins has something to protect. His title. His image. His independence. He's not part of any faction, and that's by design. He thrives as a solo act. Always has. The moment he joins Roman's team, he's a cog in someone else's machine again. That goes against everything Seth's built in the last 2 years. And let's not ignore the other wildcard. Seth might be waiting for a better offer. What if he believes Roman's days as champion are numbered? What if he sees this bloodline collapse not as a crisis, but as an opportunity? If Seth stays out of WarGames, lets the bloodline self-destruct, and steps in afterward to challenge whoever survives. Roman, Solo, or Cody, he positions himself as the real top guy. The one who didn't pick sides. The one who stood above the chaos. It's a smart move. It's also a very Seth Rollins move. But it leaves Team Roman in a bind. They need someone now. Someone who's tested, experienced, and able to go 30+ minutes inside a cage. Seth checks every box. But he might not care. He might prefer to sit back, sip his espresso, and watch it all burn. And who could blame him? This isn't his war. It's Roman's. And if Roman wants help, maybe he should have thought about that before letting the bloodline implode in the first place. So when people ask, why isn't Seth joining Team Roman? The answer is simple. Because he doesn't need to. The war lines are drawn. Survivor Series, WarGames looms like a guillotine, its shadow stretching across every promo, every match, every quiet moment between entrances. But one truth cuts through all the hype and speculation: Roman Reigns is running out of time. The empire he built, the bloodline that terrorized WWE for nearly 3 years, isn't just breaking apart. It's being dismantled piece by the very elements it once controlled. The enforcer, Solo Sikoa, has gone rogue. Bronson Reed, the unstoppable force, is now battering the very foundation Roman once ruled from. And perhaps most dangerously, the crowd? They're no longer sitting in awe. They're watching Roman struggle, and some are enjoying it. That's why this moment matters. Because this isn't just about winning a match. This is about salvaging an identity. A legacy. And that brings us full circle, back to Braun Strowman. Back to Zill Fatu. Back to the question that started it all: could Braun Strowman and Zill Fatu be the key to saving Roman Reigns and the OG Bloodline? It's not a stretch. In fact, it might be the only logical answer left on the board. Roman doesn't need yes men. He needs hitters. People who don't ask questions, who don't care about politics, who aren't afraid of getting their hands dirty. Braun is that. Zilla is that. One is proven destruction. The other is potential incarnate. Together, they offer a path forward, painful, messy, but real. Braun brings revenge. Zilla brings roots. Together, they give Roman something his current squad lacks: urgency. They're not here for photo ops. They're not here to carry the torch of nostalgia. They're here to fight. And maybe that's what Roman needs most: not another brother. Not another strategist. Just people willing to go into the fire without hesitation. But what happens if they don't show? What if Roman goes into WarGames without them, without Seth, without Braun, without Zilla? Then it's not a war. It's a slaughter. Because solo Sikoa isn't waiting. Bronson Reed isn't hesitating. Team Solo is growing stronger by the week, while Roman's team is stuck in limbo. Debates. Speculations. Rumors. None of that matters once the cage door shuts and fists start flying. Roman Reigns may be the tribal chief, but even chiefs fall if the tribe walks away. And let's not forget the bigger picture. WrestleMania 41 is right around the corner. Cody Rhodes is circling. The Rock has returned, but hasn't declared his true intentions. Seth Rollins is still lurking. If Roman doesn't plant a flag now, if he doesn't rebuild this bloodline with fresh fire, he may not even make it to WrestleMania as champion. That's the level of stakes we're talking about. This isn't just a WarGames match. This is a stress test for Roman's relevance. And the solution is staring him in the face. Braun Strowman, ready to smash his way back into the spotlight, with a score to settle against Bronson Reed. Zill Fatu, ready to debut, to reclaim a legacy that Solo has twisted and corrupted in the name of chaos. Two men. One shot at redemption. One shot at resurrection. The question is, will Roman take it? Because the clock's ticking. And the cage is waiting.